Good evening to Sir Khairul. My name is Roshni, and today I would like to present about African accent. The introduction is aim to establish dialectal features importance among the English language. This is occurred to identify how dialectical features are introduced into the speech, significant differences between the British English and the South African English, as well as the possible differences in the application dialect into language. I am aimed to identify distinct dialect features in ordinary colloquial speech which are differences to English speakers. Okay, let's move to the important points. According to the research, the South African language is similar to the English language, a composition hybrid language with lexemes being drawn from many other languages and cultures. Officially, there are 11 languages feeding into the South African, from Dutch Afrikaans to English, providing dialectal words such as Afrikaner word, braai. It's called braai for barbecue. It is often that these words interlink into different languages with the meaning mirrored into adopted languages such as Dutch of Afrikaans lexis. This is obvious through words Bitlang Afrikaans and Adwork Afrikaans, transferring to the English language. English is seen as a lingua franca in South Africa, not necessarily the dominated language spoken language, but instead a language which is backup language which is also spoken in context where appropriate. For example, English is an international business language. Therefore, the majority of English is conducted in English. Dialect form through the modification to standard of English, changing due influence and situations. They are a form expression making individualism or belongings to a group of social grouping such as level class, gentry, and middle or working. As Peter Tugdill interprets, dialects allow recognition of area of growing up and the current residents. Other people will they use the information to help them decide where we are from. Continuously, according to the data analysis, the main difference between the dialects of Southern Africa and the English dialect, it's similar to the British English, is the high lexial variation. A clear example in the word robots used in Western South Africa to mean traffic lights. This shows the use of different lexes to apply the same meaning, as also seen through the adjective lekker to mean good or nice. Whereas the British English, it means robots means and thing that which does not does help people like in technological wise. There are difference between the British and African. Moving to the next step, we have to see noun have been used with the inflection for both English speech and South Africa speech. Proper nouns for both English and South African haven't featured in inflections of S, with the exception of general modus, which said singularly on its own. However, common nouns are varied in both English and South African. Constraint nouns such as takis or pants both feature the inflections of S. Yet, constituent noun like lappy, heaven, future and inflection. This future of spoken language is mirrored in the English transcript with the constraint nouns as apples, crackers. This shows no difference between the South Africa and British English dialect in the applications of inflections. But it will not helping to solve the language investigation, because the difference are also find in difference in pronoun structure between the two transcript dialects. The English dialect's transcript focuses upon object personal pronouns. For example, I didn't know this. Whereas the Southern African transcript mainly uses the subject's personal pronouns I or we. However, this may not be a dialect difference due to being in different circumstances, with them both being on different topics due not being scripted. Therefore, it neither confirms nor disapproves dialects difference in speech. Now we're gonna see some different words that used by Afrikaans English and British English. For example, let's chow. It's African English word. Let's eat is British English word. Chow is used in certain parts of British to describe the act of eating. After that, example number 2 is bliksem. In British English, we will tell to punch. The word is derived from the Dutch word of lighting sparks.
Hi, my name is Kishan. So today I'm going to talk about South African English accent. There is no one typical South African English accent as there is one overall Australian English accent. The variety of accent within the society is in part a consequence of the varied region origins of groups of native English speakers who came to Africa at different times, and in part a consequence of the variety of mother tongues of the different ethnic groups who today use English so extensively that they must be included in the English using community. The first truly African native English accent in South Africa evolved in the speech of the children of the 1820 settlers who came to the Eastern Cape with parents who spoke many English dialects. The pronunciation features which survive are mainly those from South West England with district Cockney association. The variables listed under A below may be attributed to this origin. Under B are listed variables of probable Dutch origin reflecting close association and intermarriage with Dutch inhabitants of the Cape. There was much contact with Xhosa people in that area, but the effect of this was almost entirely confined to the vocabulary. The next large settlement from Britain took place in Natal between 1848 and 1862, giving rise to pronunciation variables pointing more to the Midlands and north of England. List C. The Natal settlers had a strong desire to remain English in every aspect of identity, social life, and behavior. Until well into this century, therefore, British English shaded into Natal English, an accent less well defined than Cape English. Of interest is the recent spread of certain features of Natal English through the community of native English speakers in South Africa. Standard Southern British English (SSB), the so-called received pronunciation of the well-educated with high school status, became socially significant with South African society, generally from 1880 onwards in the great flow of immigration from mainly Britain and Europe to the diamond and gold fields. In the new towns and cities, in these areas is overshadowed all the local English with a social meaning authority and high social status in the stratified class societies which were evolving. It became the standard to be imitated by all who aspired to higher status. The social influence of SSB was retained in South Africa until the Second World War. Even in the 1990s and 1980s, newsreaders of the SABC were expected to speak in this way. A BBC correspondent as late as 1973 commented on the impeccable upper middle class accent of the announcers. In 1971, an English professor of Wits University commented signally, there is a residue of South African English variables not obviously traceable to origin associated with list A to C with a high incidence of occurrence. Some serve to identify South Africans about term generals, variables list D. A number are probably products of trends in language change arising within the pronunciation system itself. The English speech of the Dutch in the Western Cape had an accent at least as old as that of Cape English, strongly influenced by Dutch pronunciation, usually in coincidence with high levels of competence in every other aspect of English usage. African English today range from an accent heavily impregnated with features of Afrikaans pronunciation to what is basically a native English accent with only traces of the hallmarks of Afrikaans English. Black South Africans make up the largest body of English users in South Africa with their own distinctive accent. African English was initially a product of education in mission schools in the 19th century, mainly in the Cape, where an elite received a high-quality education. The industrialization of South Africans saw an ever-increasing number of people with a need for English and growing number of private and state schools were meeting this need. African English became a self-fertilizing in the 40 years of isolation created by apartheid and some obvious direct transfers from African language pronunciation have hard-handed into an African English pronunciation which the great majority of black South Africans are now using. African selection of the most prominent features in found in list F. Indian English was introduced by or involved within the group of introduced laborers and immigrants coming to Natal from 1816 onwards. Until well into this century, Indian English pronunciation was characterized by variables typical of the Indian English of India. In recent generations, however, Indian English has progressively moved away from the influence of Indian languages, coinciding with a shift to English as the language of the home. English is, in fact, the only language really known by younger South African Indians. The distinguishing feature of Indian English today is the accent, to which is exclude the most typical South African English variables and approximates the local standard.